Camila hadn't stepped inside a school hallway in nearly 10 months. The last time she walked through those doors, her hair was long, her cheeks full, and her laughter echoed across the lockers. But that morning, when she stood at the entrance, with her backpack slung over one shoulder, and a wig perfectly combed over her bald head, nothing felt the same. Not even close. She hesitated before pushing open the door. She had seen the school in dreams, in memories, in blurry hospital drawings. Now it was real, and louder than she remembered. Students rushed past her without noticing. Or maybe they did, but pretended not to. Her steps were slow, deliberate. She kept her eyes down, afraid that someone might stare too long, that someone might recognize the old her beneath this version. Thinner, quieter, hiding behind synthetic hair. Mrs. Levin, her homeroom teacher, spotted her in the hallway and rushed over with a practiced smile. "Camila, you're back. Oh honey, it's so good to see you." Camila nodded, trying to smile, but it didn't quite reach her eyes. "Thank you. I missed it. Kind of." Mrs. Levin's expression softened. She seemed unsure whether to hug her or just gently touch her arm. She settled for a warm pat on the shoulder. "Everyone will be so happy to see you, sweetie. We'll take it one day at a time, okay?" Camila gave another small nod. That phrase, "one day at a time," had followed her through every hospital room, every recovery journal, every quiet conversation with the nurses. She walked into class, just as the bell rang. A few heads turned. Some kids whispered. One boy mouthed something to another, and they chuckled. Camila sank into her seat, clutching her pencil like a lifeline. Her wig felt too tight. She kept imagining it slipping. Her hand kept adjusting it when no one was looking. There was one familiar face, Mia, who used to be her lab partner in biology. Mia looked at her, smiled softly, and waved. That made Camila's heart beat just a little easier. The rest of the day passed like fog. Teachers welcomed her back with cautious energy. Some classmates offered quiet hellos, and a few just stared. Not all stares were mean. Some were just curious. But when you're 14 and trying to blend in, curiosity feels a lot like judgment. By lunchtime, Camila had worked up the courage to sit in the cafeteria instead of eating alone behind the library like she had considered. She grabbed a tray, took the safest-looking sandwich, and scanned the room for a spot. She noticed Mia sitting with two other girls, but the table looked full. She didn't want to intrude. Finally, she found an empty seat at the corner near the windows and sat down alone. She focused on unwrapping her sandwich, pretending she didn't notice the glances from a nearby table. That's when it happened. A group of older girls walked past, juniors, maybe seniors. One of them was tall, blonde, and carried herself like the hallway owed her rent. Her name was Julia, though Camila didn't know it yet. Not really. Julia didn't speak. She didn't even smile. She just looked directly at Camila, at her head, at the edge of her wig, and then narrowed her eyes. That look wasn't loud. It didn't come with words, but it said everything. Camila froze. Her sandwich hovered in the air. The back of her neck burned. Julia walked past without a word, but her friends giggled quietly behind her, whispering as they passed. Camila looked back down at her tray. Her appetite vanished. Her hands were trembling slightly. That was it. Just a look. Just a moment. But Camila knew. This wasn't going to be easy. Not because of the classes or the homework, or even the exhaustion she still felt in her bones. It was going to be the looks. The silences. The invisible line that had been drawn between her and the rest of them, and this was only day one. The first few days passed like stepping through glass. Camila tried to act normal, smiled when necessary, answered when spoken to, stayed quiet otherwise, but she could feel it. The eyes. The whispers just loud enough to catch her name. It started small. A paper left on her desk with nothing but a sad face drawn in red ink. A water bottle missing from her locker. Laughter that stopped the moment she entered a room. Things that couldn't be proven. Things teachers wouldn't notice. During gym, Camila went to grab her uniform from the locker she had just used the day before, but it was gone. Not just misplaced. Gone. She checked again and again, even looked in the lost and found, but it had simply vanished. When she told Coach Harrison, he looked annoyed, and handed her an old spare from the bottom of a dusty box. It didn't fit right. The sleeves were too short, and the collar scratched her neck. By the time she walked out of the locker room, a few girls had already started stretching near the bleachers. Camila felt the heat of their stares. One of them giggled, covering her mouth with the back of her hand. Camila kept her head down and joined the line. Later that day, as she opened her locker between classes, a folded note fluttered out. She picked it up and read the single sentence scrawled in messy handwriting. "We liked you better sick." She blinked. For a long second, she just stood there, staring at the words. Her heart pounded. She looked around, but no one was watching. Or maybe they were, just not openly. She wanted to tear the note apart, but her hands wouldn't move. Instead, she shoved it deep into her pocket. That afternoon, everything escalated. It happened after fifth period, in the courtyard where the popular kids usually gathered. Camila didn't mean to walk through their space. She had simply taken a shortcut to avoid the main stairs. But that was when she saw Julia up close for the first time. Julia sat on the stone bench like it was her throne. Her hair gleamed in the sun, her posture effortless, her phone in one hand. Around her stood the girls Camila had seen whispering in the cafeteria. Perfect nails, perfect clothes, perfect everything. Julia looked up as Camila passed. No smile, no greeting. Well, if it isn't the comeback girl," she said, voice cool and smooth like glass. Camila stopped. "I'm Julia. Welcome back." "Sort of." One of the girls chuckled. A tall one with freckles and an apologetic expression. Camila nodded slowly. "Thanks. I guess." Julia tilted her head. "That's a nice wig. Where'd you get it? Amazon?" Another giggle, sharper this time. Camila swallowed hard. "It's none of your business." Julia smiled, not kindly. "Oh, it is now." The tension was broken by the girl with freckles. Her name, Camila would learn later, was Brooke. She stepped forward slightly, her voice hesitant. "Come on, Julia. Leave her alone." Julia turned her gaze to Brooke and raised one eyebrow. "You got something to say?" Brooke went quiet. Her lips moved as if she wanted to say more, but nothing came out. She stepped back, eyes on the ground. Camila took that moment to walk away, fast. She didn't look back. That evening she lay in bed staring at the ceiling, the words looping in her head like static. "We liked you better sick. That's a nice wig. Welcome back." Sort of. The next day, gym again. Camila hated gym now. The locker room felt like a trap. Too many mirrors, too many eyes. She changed quickly, back turned to everyone, trying to hide the fact that she wore a tight cap under her wig to keep it in place. As she peeled off her t-shirt and reached for her gym shirt, something clicked. A soft creak. The door. Someone had opened the locker room door wide. She turned instinctively, and for one horrifying second, saw two girls standing outside, staring directly at her. Her head was bare. The cap had slipped halfway, exposing her bald scalp. They didn't scream. They didn't laugh. They just stared. And then the door slammed shut again. Camila stood frozen, half-dressed, breath caught in her throat. Someone had done it on purpose. Someone had waited for that exact moment. She clenched her fists, pulled the gym shirt over her head, and walked out to the court without a word. But something inside her cracked that day. Not broken, not yet, but cracked. And that crack would only grow. Friday came with gray skies and the weight of a storm that hadn't yet broken. Camila felt it the moment she stepped off the bus, like something in the air was warning her, but she ignored it. As she had every other sign this week. There was no point in hoping things would suddenly get better. She only had to survive the day. The cafeteria was loud, full of laughter, footsteps and clattering trays. Camila clutched hers with both hands and scanned the room quickly. Her usual spot near the window was empty. She walked toward it, head down, pretending she didn't feel the stares following her. She sat and began picking at her mashed potatoes, pushing them around without eating. Across the room, Julia stood at her usual table, surrounded by her court of followers, her perfect smile glued to her face as always. But today, Julia's eyes kept drifting to Camila, watching, measuring. Camila tried to focus on her tray. She didn't notice Brooke watching from a distance, biting her lip and fidgeting with her hoodie strings. Then all at once, Julia moved. She walked away from her group, tray still in hand, and made a beeline straight toward Camila. The entire cafeteria seemed to slow down. Camila looked up when the shadow fell over her table. "Hey," Julia said, sounding unusually soft.
Mind if I sit?
Camila stared at her, confused. Around them, whispers had already begun. Julia didn't wait for an answer. She sat down, placing her tray across from Camila's. "Listen," she said, lowering her voice. "I've been thinking, I was kinda mean the other day. I guess I didn't realize how hard it must be for you." Camila blinked. She could feel dozens of eyes now, all trained on her table. Julia leaned forward a little. "I just want to say I'm sorry, okay? I don't want us to be enemies. That's not who I am." Camila hesitated. This didn't feel right. It felt too practiced, too smooth. But her heart was so desperate for a moment of peace, for someone to stop treating her like a sideshow, that she nodded. "Okay," she said quietly. Julia smiled. "Good. Friends? Then?" She held out her hand across the table. Camila looked at it. Slowly, cautiously, she reached out her own to shake it. And then, in one lightning-quick movement, Julia reached up with her other hand and yanked the wig off Camila's head. A gasp cut through the cafeteria like a blade. Someone dropped a fork. Camila's scalp, pale and exposed, caught the fluorescent light. She froze. There was silence. A thick, choking silence. And then a burst of laughter from someone near the vending machines. Phones were already out. At least 3 kids were filming. Julia stood, holding the wig in one hand like a trophy, her face twisted in mock sympathy. "Oops," she said. "Must have gotten tangled in my bracelet." Camila stared at her in shock, and then at the rows of faces watching, recording, smirking. Her chest heaved, her vision blurred, and then she screamed, a sharp, heartbroken sound that made several people flinch. She bolted from her seat, shoved through the crowd, and ran. Past the tables, past the teachers at the door, down the hall. She didn't stop until she reached the girls' restroom near the gym. She slammed the stall door shut, and collapsed to the floor, hugging her knees, sobbing silently into the crook of her arm. Outside, the video had already started circulating. By the end of lunch period, it had been reposted in 3 group chats and uploaded to TikTok with the caption, "Bald and broken." It had over 200 likes by 3 p.m. When Camila finally got home, her face was blank. She walked through the front door without a word. Her mom was in the kitchen, humming to herself while chopping vegetables. "Hey honey, how was school?" Camila didn't answer. She walked straight to her room, closed the door behind her, and crawled into bed without taking off her shoes. She pulled the blanket over her head, curled into a ball, and lay still. From the other side of the door, her mom called again. "Camila, everything okay?" But Camila didn't answer. She just kept lying there, eyes open in the dark, alone, and silent. The week after the humiliating incident felt heavier than ever for Camila. She moved through the hallways like a ghost, avoiding eyes, dreading every whisper. But then the school announced a special event. A motivational guest speaker was coming to talk to the students. The flyer described her as an accomplished athlete and role model, who overcame hardship to succeed. The morning of the assembly, Camila sat near the back, shoulders hunched, expecting nothing but another reminder of how different she was. The gym was crowded, buzzing with excitement. The lights dimmed, and a tall woman stepped onto the stage. Her presence was powerful, confident and calm, her dark skin glowing under the spotlight. She introduced herself as Tiana, a professional track star who had grown up in tough neighborhoods, but fought her way through challenges that seemed impossible. Her story was raw and real, but full of hope. Camila found herself drawn in, her heart pounding as if she were hearing not just a speech but a message meant only for her. After the talk, a small group gathered near the exit, and Camila, hesitant but curious, found herself inching closer to Tiana. "Hey," she said softly, "my name is Camila. I just wanted to say your story. It means a lot to me." Tiana smiled warmly. "Thank you, Camila. That means a lot. You're brave. You know, just by being here." Camila looked down, cheeks flushing. There was something familiar in Tiana's eyes, a softness mixed with strength, that made her feel an unexpected comfort. Tiana studied her for a moment, then asked gently, "Do you have someone to talk to about what you're going through?" Camila shook her head. "You're not alone," Tiana said quietly. "Sometimes the hardest battles are the ones we fight inside. But I'm here if you ever want to talk." Over the next few days, Tiana spent time at the school, mentoring students and quietly keeping an eye on Camila. One afternoon, as they walked through the empty hallways, Tiana stopped. "There's something I need to tell you," she said, "something I've kept hidden for a long time." Camila looked up, heart skipping. "When you were born, my mother made a choice. She had to. We were just kids, struggling to survive. She left you with a family who could care for you, and I was sent away to live with relatives far from here." Tiana's voice cracked slightly as she continued, "I'm your sister, Camila." Camila's eyes widened, her mind racing to process the impossible truth. All these years, she had felt alone, abandoned, but now here was someone who shared her blood, her pain, and maybe her hope. Tiana reached out, taking Camila's hands in hers. "I didn't come back just to find you," she said. "I came back so no one else would ever hurt us like this again." That night, Camila sat in her room staring at her phone. The video, the one from the cafeteria, was still there, still cruel, still spreading. Tiana's words echoed in her mind. No one would hurt us again. Camila felt a flicker of strength rise inside her. Maybe this was just the beginning. The days leading up to the charity event were buzzing with excitement and tension. The whole school was preparing for the big night, a chance to raise money for local hospitals and showcase student talents. Posters decorated the hallways, announcements echoed in classrooms, and everyone whispered about who would steal the spotlight. Julia, the self-proclaimed queen of the school, was determined to reclaim her throne. She rehearsed her speech and planned her grand entrance, making sure all eyes would be on her once again. But something was changing. Students who used to hang on her every word started avoiding her. Friends grew distant, and her usual followers seemed less eager to defend her antics. Meanwhile, Tiana moved quietly through the school, talking with groups of students, including some boys who had been witnesses to the bullying. She listened, encouraged them to stand up, and slowly built a network of support around Camila. Camila herself was in turmoil. The pain from the video and the cafeteria incident still lingered, but something inside her was shifting. The fear that had held her captive was losing its grip. She no longer wanted to hide behind a wig or pretend everything was okay. One afternoon, she sat alone in the library, watching classmates prepare decorations. Her sister sat beside her. "You're ready," Tiana said softly. "Ready to stop hiding?" Camila nodded, her hands trembling slightly. "I'm scared," she admitted. "What if they laugh again? What if it gets worse?" Tiana reached out, squeezing her hand. "You won't be alone. I'll be there. We all will." The day of the event arrived. The auditorium was packed. Parents, teachers and students filling every seat. The stage was set, lights dimmed, and the microphone waited. Backstage, Julia paced nervously, trying to mask her frustration. The crowd was quieter than usual, and the usual cheers felt forced. Then it was time. Camila stood in the wings, her hair bare for the first time in months. No wig, no mask, just herself. Tiana came up beside her, smiling. Ready? Camila took a deep breath and nodded. Tiana took her hand and led her onto the stage. The lights shone down. The room quieted. For the first time in a long time, Camila faced the crowd, not as a victim, but as someone who refused to be broken. As Camila stepped forward toward the microphone, a sudden murmur swept through the auditorium. The lights dimmed further, and the projector flickered on, casting a large image on the screen behind her. The crowd fell silent, eyes fixed on the video playing out before them. The moment Julia cruelly tore off Camila's wig in the crowded cafeteria, faces went pale, whispers stopped. The room was frozen, the weight of the humiliation hanging in the air like a thick fog. Camila swallowed hard but lifted her chin and faced the sea of faces without a trace of shame. "They thought I was weak," she said clearly, her voice steady despite the pounding in her chest. "But the hospital taught me what real courage looks like." A long pause stretched between the words, tension building. Then from somewhere near the back of the room, a boy rose to his feet. His eyes shone with respect, his stance firm. Another followed, then another. Slowly but surely, students began to stand one by one, until the entire auditorium was on its feet. Applause erupted, loud and sincere, drowning out the silence that had ruled moments before. Julia stood frozen, her usual confidence shattered. The power she had wielded over the school crumbled beneath the united support for Camila. Camila glanced toward her sister, who nodded with pride and encouragement. Together, they stepped away from the microphone, their steps light with newfound strength. As they walked out of the school building side by side, Camila's gaze was no longer filled with fear but with determination. A voice echoed softly over the scene, the voice of a narrator, calm and clear. "They tore my wig off, but I stopped hiding my head.